But I was like, they're pressure washing concrete. What could possibly go wrong? I'm just going to quickly jet off for 15 minutes. There's a gas station down the road, and I'm just going to go get gas. I'm going to come back, right? Leave, come back, and the house is literally on fire. like people joke, like, I got fires to put out. I'm like, no. Like, this is like literally on fire.
When your leads are low and your sales are slow, who you gonna call? Brushbuster.
What's up, everybody? We're just getting right into it.
Diving right on
Container Growth Podcast, and this is a special Halloween all-in episode. Are we allowed to say that?
We'll see. We'll see if they come after us.
So, I mean, anyone listening to Brushbuster, so I got to turn off this music. This is a creepy vibe. Anyone listening to Brushbuster so far familiar with all of us, right? We're here, and for our special Halloween episode, we're going to talk about our horror stories and hopefully have a little bit of fun doing it.
Sounds good. I was thinking about it this morning. Gavin and I were doing this at the mastermind, and we're like crying. We're laughing so hard at the stories.
Yeah, it's funnier. It's funny. It's like the worse it is at the time, and the more horrible it is at the time, the funnier the story after the fact, like years down the road.
I have a question. Has anyone here cried?
Oh yeah. My whole first month of production. Oh, both, everything.
All right, who feels like they're ready to break the ice with a story?
Well, going on the crying one, I can start with one of my first stories here. So,
right.
This was 2015. It was the first job I ever had to produce, and I pre-booked about $100,000 worth of work, and then we had 2 days where we learned how to paint a house, and it didn't really click for me. I had no idea what I was doing. And on the way up, my production vehicle that I bought, the head gasket blew on the way to this training. Okay. And I had 2 maxed out credit cards, and I virtually had like no money in my bank account. And we go there, and so I go to the training, and then we go to the first job, and I'm using my buddy's car now to drop off ladders. And everyone told me, like, don't hire painters with experience because, you want to train them yourself, right? I don't know how good of advice that was when you don't know how to paint a job. So all the guys I hired, evergreen, never touched a brush either. And we start the first day of the job, and I'm on the back of the house, like teaching myself how to scrape. And then I run to the front of the house, and I show the guys, I'm like, hey, this is how you scrape. And then I go to the back, and I'm like, hey, this is how you cut. And then I run to the front and like show them, hey, this is how you cut. So I'm like going back and forth, like teaching myself on the back of the house while I teach them. And we're dealing with rain, and it's just going horrible. After the second day, I had 2 of the guys quit, and so now it's just me and this other guy. And this job is it was like at the time it was a $4,000 job.
It's like job number 1 for you.
Job number 1, first house ever. And this has now gone on like 10, 11 days, right? And I remember I was only eating trail mix and apples the entire time. And again, I had no money, right? And the one day we finally get it to a point of like, we're going to do a final walk around with the customer, but they weren't able to get into town until 6 p.m. So I'm like, I'm just going to go to Walmart and get some groceries. So I go to Walmart, and I'm sitting there kind of collecting myself after working from, 6 a.m. till 10 p.m. for almost 2 weeks straight now. And I go into Walmart, and I'm going to get groceries, and my vision starts to get really blurry, and it starts to go like black, and I just fall into my cart. I like blacked out and like fell into my cart, and I'm like, whoa, okay. Like I came to it as I caught myself. Then I keep walking along, vision starts to go blurry, it goes completely black, and I just fall right into my cart again. And I'm like, okay, this is, I think I'm a little overworked right now. So this happened 4 times throughout this grocery shop. So get the groceries. I sit in the van knowing well off that I'm like, I should not be driving at this point because of what had just happened. But I'm also like, I need this money so that I can make payroll and I can pay off my credit cards and I can go pick up my van, which I owe a ton of money on, for the mechanics that I begged to pay them like 2 or 3 weeks after doing the job. And so I go to the job site thinking I'm going to go there. It's going to be great. Customer, walk around and collect this money. And I go there and I show up and there is green tape all over the house. And these customers are just pissed. And we're walking around and the husband, he's just giving it to me. And so this is 2015. It was like 21 years old or something at the point. And this is right after this episode at Walmart. And I just burst into tears. Like I just start bawling in front of him. And like at that point, he kind of realized what was going on and how all my staff for that week had quit, or like the first 3 guys that I hired, they had all quit. I was basically painting this myself. I begged one of the guys that quit to come back and help me finish it. And anyways, after getting through the crying and leading up to that, the previous like 11 or 12 days, I was on the phone to my coach and I was crying every single night as I was going through this experience, and come up with a plan with the customer. We go there on Sunday, myself and this other painter, we paint the entire day to fix up all these mistakes and whatnot, and then we are able to do the final walk around, we're able to get that payment and start paying off some of these credit cards, make the payroll, and it was an absolute living hell.
Who was your coach at the time?
Nicole Gallup was my coach.
Nicole.
So she's actually still one of my best friends, which is great. But yeah, I was literally on the phone crying every single night to her, and I was just straight up cried on the site. My one staff member saw me on site bawling as well, and it's funny, I think back, that was $4,000 and whatnot, and now having done like millions of dollars of painting later, I literally almost didn't make it through that first $4,000. And in that first month that went on, and I'll let you guys share your stories. I was thinking of my stories, but like 4 of my worst like 5 stories happened in the month of May that first year. And I was like May was the worst, hardest month of my life.
Your first May as a student painter is like it'll make you or break you.
Oh yeah, it's intense. So anyways, that was my story about my very first job, absolutely bawling on site to the customer.
Rich, you don't seem like a crier. I don't feel like you ever cried on site.
No, I was gonna say I got teary-eyed, but no crying.
What almost brought you to tears?
I'd say it was the first fall of my last business, this Jack Shine franchise, and it was when we started Christmas lights. I was operating in Ontario, Canada, so really cold in the wintertime. We kind of wrapped up the cleaning side of our business, which switched over to Christmas lights. I mean, it really is, as Gavin can attest, a sort of a different business in of itself.
Yep.
And so this is fall 2018, and just making so many mistakes. Started selling a bunch of jobs and then got production going and just didn't know what I was doing. I got I want to say mid-October, it started like snowing, super cold. So I mean, I didn't have any jackets for the guys. I was lending like just old ratty winter jackets I had in my house just to keep the guys warm on site. And then a couple jobs into production, I mean, there was already like ice and snow buildup right up to in the gutter line where you actually install the clips for the lights. So it was actually putting clip into the gutter. And I didn't know at the time, of course, you figure all this out, that you could actually just, you flip where you clip in, you clip into like the soffit under the gutter line. And so again, I'm just running around like a complete, moron. And I bought a heat gun thinking that, the clip had to be installed up there. So I was literally with my guys on site, like melting the ice for each clip on for 300 feet of gutter line on a, 2.5 story, big home.
Every foot.
Every clip is 12 inches. Right. So again, Gavin, like 28 feet in the air with a heat gun on an extension cord, standing there for like 2 minutes, and then like chipping away with like a flathead screwdriver, like just to get that clip in. Then I would rinse and repeat later. And I think we were like triple over budget. and we're still like halfway through the job. And I just, at one point, stopped. And I think, I don't know who I called. I think I called my pops or something like that. I'm just like, this is ridiculous. Like, and it was 2 weeks of just like mishap after mishap. And then it was this thing. And I was like, yeah, definitely welled up a little bit. And I was like, yeah, I don't know if I figured out halfway through that job that you could switch, because I made a bunch of phone calls, or literally just finished that job by literally melting the ice for every foot, for every clip.
Like the classic YouTubing on site.
If that doesn't bring you to tears, melting 300 clips,
Oh, yeah.
28 feet in the air, I don't know what will, man. You're pretty resilient.
Yeah,
That's brutal.
so that was an early memory I have from production with my last business.
Yeah. How about you, Gavin? What's the worst one that comes to mind?
So the worst one that comes to mind is also very early in my painting career. My first year, to put this in context, my market where I ran my first painting company is New Westminster in BC. So a lot of heritage homes. So like big projects, full, like everything on the outside, tons of prep, like tri-colored trim, like super intricate, detailed. And I had this customer, her name is Sandra. I'll never forget her. I don't know if I was just super new. Like, this is my first year. I definitely was super new. So now I know better. I just ignored so many red flags leading up to this job. Her telling me about every single contractor she's ever hired is incompetent. And doesn't know what they're doing. And now it's immediately like, oh, you've
Let's
had
hire a
22 people work on
21-year-old.
this house and they're all bad. Okay. Or the
Time to
fact
buck that trend.
yeah. 4 years to pick a color because she's an artist, So that was
I would have turned around and
nothing wrong with artists. Just making this clear, but I'm gonna, yeah. So, anyways,
I feel like you said that in the exact tone that she said that to you.
oh yeah, she's an artist, yeah, because it comes up multiple times in the story.
Like if you're a vegan, it's like you got to let everyone know.
Yeah.
Essentially, like her house had lit on fire because she never cleaned her lint trap. So like the whole house needed to get like repainted and stuff. So tons of prep on this 100-year-old house, like 110-year-old house. It took her 4 years to custom make this color. It's like Pepto-Bismol pink for like the siding, like the main siding color. She insisted I had female painters on it. I just kept conceding. I'm like, I can do this. I was just like blinded by an $18K job. It should have probably been like 30. And so I'm like, sure, I'll get my girls on it. They're awesome anyways. And get them on there. Everything seems to be going well at first, right? And then she starts calling me like every 2 hours after like day 2. She's like, they're not doing the prep properly. They're not doing the prep properly. I'm like, I'm pretty sure they're doing the prep. Those are my best painters. And I go there, it looks awesome. And then I'm like, she wasn't there. I called her. And like, everything looks awesome to me. Like I inspected, like documented, like this is going well. And I get there, so I leave, and I have 2 other crews to manage at this time. And she calls me again. She's like, no, they haven't done anything. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like at this point, it's like multiple days into this job. Like they've definitely done things. I've been there. Like you can see the primer. She's like, it's not up to my standards. I'm like, okay, let's meet there. And like the standard preparations, like scrape, scuff sand it, prime it. And I made that very clear.
She wanted you to like feather sand everything.
Oh yeah. To the point of like, okay, so like, like again, I conceded of like, we'll just get power sanders and power sand this house, not knowing how long that would freaking take. So then 2 more days go by. The girls are still on the same 200 square foot patch of siding, prepping this thing. It's been like 4 or 5 days. And I get a call. She's like, still not good. I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, I can feel the ridges.
Oh my
Feel
God.
the ridges. Like I'm an artist, I'm like, oh, okay. Yes, I'm very aware you're an artist. Thank you very much. At this point, I got $1,500 worth of Benjamin Moore paint in the back of my truck for this job. Pepto-Bismol pink paint. I'm like, well, I need to drop the paint off anyways, because we're going to be painting soon. little did I know, I didn't really know how little the crew had actually gotten done because she was literally watching them do everything. And I get there, and you know when like archaeologists need to like uncover the faintest outline of stone carvings, they do like a rubbing with like paper and like charcoal, and they like rub on it. So that's what the client was doing on the siding of her house. And obviously you can see the like microscopic texture changes. And like she wanted it perfectly smooth. So at that point I kind of realized like, you're crazy.
just at that point you realize,
like, that was the deciding factor. So I told her like, this is like, that's just impossible. Like you're asking the impossible. And she's like, you're just the same as all my other painters. And then it clicked. Like, oh, okay. So I'm like, you know what? We're not doing this job for you. I had to fire her. I just fired her on the spot in front of my painters. By the way,
And you just ate the $1,500 in paint and the.
Oh no. Because I told her like, look, I've got the paint here for you, but like the amount of work we've already put in, the hours, like the deposit doesn't even cover that. So like, if you want this paint, I need to collect some money from you. And she refused to pay. So I refused to give her the paint out of spite, I guess, at the time. And I was so like tortured by that job. I refused to like give it away and like donate it or, like recycle it. So I had like this pyramid, and it's all single gallon cans too from Benjamin Moore. This pyramid of Pepto-Bismol pink paint in my garage for 4 years.
Just a constant reminder of.
There's a constant reminder of that job. Yeah.
You let that go on for 4 years?
Oh,
I mean, like Jesse now getting into like energy work, like that Pepto-Bismol paint had energy.
Oh yeah, man.
Sure. Like I was trying to sell it. I was like, I was so stubborn, and then eventually
You didn't reach out to like Procter and Gamble, y'all doing a mural.
I ended up like recycling it or something and just getting rid of it. But
oh my god,
fun stuff.
That's so good. You just had a daily like trauma reminder every single day you walked into your garage, or what?
Yeah, I walked to my garage. My motorcycle was there. It's awesome. Like, yeah, love that. And then scan over, and it's like,
I can't believe you held on to that paint for 4 years.
The best part of that whole story is after all that, you held on to it for 4 years.
Yeah. If I was having a really good day, I need to be brought back down to level. I would just sit there and sit on the pyramid of.
Put like some pink war paint on your eyes.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe in the off chance another client picked that color, I could give him a smoking deal.
Knowing what you know now, though, like in the estimate of meeting her, would you have picked up every single one of those red flags
immediately?
Yeah. Like what are the couple of the red flags that you would have picked up on during the estimate?
Just the fact that she said straight up, it took me 4 years to pick this color. Like, that's a huge red flag. To all of the designers that she's paid were incompetent to pick colors. Yep. All of the contractors she's ever hired to do work were incompetent.
That's a big one.
That's the biggest one. I'm sure there are others for sure.
What do you call that, Jesse? Like not deflecting, but projecting.
Projecting, yeah. She's projecting what's going on for herself. So
for sure.
But now once you know that, once you see that, it's so easy to see. Gavin, did you ever go back? Did that house ever actually get painted?
You know what? Legend has it that 200 square foot piece of siding still looks awesome. Primed. never been painted.
No way. Oh my
God. I don't know, honestly. I think it did get done at some point.
Yeah.
I just pity the
painter who did it.
Yeah.
Did it. It must be
man.
very, very patient people.
So I did tell my House from Hell story on this podcast. I'll do a quick like rundown of it. But basically, like it was right towards the end of my first season. You guys were talking at the start of your first season. This was right at the end of it. This was like one of the last jobs. And it was like getting right back, like right close to like school coming back in. So I had a few painters. Like we got started. It was probably like I still actually remember where I was standing when I booked the job. I was in like my ex-girlfriend's kitchen. I was like on the island and I like looked at my phone and booked like this 8K job. I'm like, yes, I'm going to finish another summer strong. Little did I know that job would end up like becoming like part of my identity. So yeah, everything that could go wrong went wrong. It was like massively underbid. I think the customer was similar in terms of like it was like a customer with ridiculous high expectations, but at the same time, we also messed up like everything. Like, do you guys know those wooden storm windows that come out?
Mhm.
Right.
Yep.
So those supposed to get puttied. You put like that putty that you like roll in the snake and push it down with the putty knife and like make it all flat. Anyway, I had this painter that I hired like the week before, and I'm just like, hey man, you go. His name was Austin. Just remembered that. Austin, you go in the corner there and you putty all these windows. So I showed him how to do it. I checked back after like 2 days, and he had puttied every single window, but instead of using the putty knife, he used his thumb.
Oh no.
And so we had just like these thumbprints, and that putty dries rock hard. It's not like spackle. It's rock hard. So I ended up having to buy a belt sander and going and belt sanding all of this putty. In the meantime of doing this, we scratched all of the windows. I scratched all of the windows. And these are like original, like 100-year-old windows, right? And so like, you know, new windows are completely like clear. These 100-year-old windows are kind of like wavy and they have like that personality to them. Anyway, they were pissed about that. One of my painters sprayed siding paint on the stucco. Let's see, I had a couple painters quit on me, but we would go to the job site every morning, and she would have like a piece of paper with all of like the deficiencies taped to the front door. Like after about 2 weeks, they wouldn't even talk. Like the wife wouldn't even talk to me. She would just like stay inside. It was just to hide the deal with the husband. And to top it all off, right towards the end of the job, you know, it's how I got this scar. How did you get the scars? I was painting a window on a second story. I had a ladder on top of an awning, and the ladder ended up falling backwards, ended up falling through the awning, down another 10 or 12 feet onto a lawnmower on a concrete pad, dislocated my wrist, went to the hospital, emergency surgery, came back with a cast, and the homeowner was standing out in front of on the lawn, like waiting for me to come back. And as I showed up, the first word out of his mouth was, "What are you going to do about my roof?" I'm like, "Hey, no, checking in. How are you doing? Hope you're okay. What are you going to do about my roof?" Yeah. So we went through it. I got the project done. It was double budget. We lost a ton of money on it. I had worked at Home Depot previously. So my friend who was the assistant store manager came out and helped me build like a cedar. We took down the aluminum awning and we built like a cedar pergola type thing. It looked amazing. Way better than it was. And then anyway, I'm like sitting on the front step. It's like those 3-step concrete step. Talking to the homeowner, collecting payment. I'm like, "Okay, I'm going to get paid. And I'm going to get this over with." And as we're collecting the payment, he gives me a check. He's like, "Mike, thanks for finishing the project, but I think you only earned half." He's like, "Here's half." It was like $4 grand for like this 2 weeks or whatever. And that's when I cried on site. That was the first and only time that I cried on a job site. I was just like, dude, are you kidding me? This wrecked me.
Oh my God.
My life. And I can't remember how much I ended up getting. On the comments from the last podcast, people were like, "You should have filed a lien or whatever, like, because you had the right to file." I didn't know that. But anyway, I think I collected most of it because he felt really bad. But yeah, the color green on that house will always live in my memory. It's actually kind of like your shirt, Jesse.
Oh, good. I'm glad I'm
similar to that.
glad I'm reminding you of that.
It was like green stucco, and then it had like a bright red door and yellow trim. It looked really, really good, but almost killed me.
Oh my God. These war stories, going back to like just listening to everyone's and reflecting on our own. I think there's like an element of obviously in hindsight, and people listen to this are like, there's so many mistakes you make along the way, but when all of us were so new and getting into this that we didn't know. But the other thing that I think is really cool is like the amount of courage it takes to do something that you're not, exactly competent in, to just start and to do it and get on the field. And I think that if you're going through a job from hell right now, just remember that it's going to be part of your story, right? Yeah. And that's, you
can't let it define you.
It's just one moment of time. And if you take the learning and the lessons, where I think, and I went wrong in that first month, it was like I kept the compounding errors going. So it was like a train that just wouldn't stop. I just kept making mistake after mistake after mistake after mistake. And one thing that I learned is like when you get in that moment when the momentum starts going the wrong way, like the train is going off the rails. Like I think one thing that I started to get really good at was pause. I would just like pause, and I'm like, okay, no more bad decisions. Like from this point forward, we got to stop this train from going that way, and we got to get it going the other way. And it starts with like taking a moment and pausing, and just no more compounding errors, because that's where people really get derailed, right? It's the compounding errors. It's not that one thing. It's we did that thing that compounded on that, which compounded on that, and it just keeps going and going and going. The sooner you can catch it and say, okay, that happened, stop, take a breath, let's get it moving back in the right direction, right? And I think that a lot of that, though, just comes from the experience of being on the court, like playing the game.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right with like being an entrepreneur. It takes guts. You know, you're unemployable. Almost every job that I ever had, I got fired from, right? But you're on your own path. You're doing things that other people are scared to do. But the benefit of like going through, like trotting through the shit, is that you can find the pile of gold on the other side. Right. There's an outsized return available for those who are willing to have the tenacity to make it through.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I love it.
I got one more that's not directly tied to a job site, but it's a kind of a good, funny Halloween story with business if we have time.
We got lots of time. I think cool. I'm good for the hour. Are you guys good?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay.
I got some good ones.
So this was about a year or two ago. So just for context, the area that I operated in north of Toronto, there was a high Italian population. And the town that my wife and I lived in, just big Italian population. If you kind of picture some mobster type movies just for the framing. Throughout the years that I operated the business there, I got sort of connected with some interesting characters in the area, shall we say. There's a coffee shop literally right down the street from where I lived, where it was like every Friday, it was a coffee shop, but it was clearly a front for other business dealings through the back. So every time I'd walk in there, they got everyone that was sitting down having an espresso would sort of stare at me like, what is this guy? This guy's got, a comb over. He's got, collared shirts. Like, what's his deal? All these guys during the week ran big construction companies, and then on the weekend they show up in like Maseratis, Range Rovers, Ferraris. That's just kind of the picture, right? And one of the guys that was sort of seemed like one of the main characters. He owned a bunch of land and parking lots and gas stations in the area where I live. So we needed parking a couple years in for some of our vans, and so I ended up getting connected with him, and I was like, "Hey, Rob, I need parking on and off throughout the year for 4 of our trucks." And he was like, "Yeah, hey, Rich, absolutely no problem." He's like, "Come meet me at my office." And his office was down the street. He was building a condo development actually, so he bought some land. He was getting it redeveloped, and he put a little office in this house that he bought on this property on a busy road. And so he was in the gravel business. He had a bunch of big gravel trucks, heavy machinery, land development, a bunch of different stuff. I went into this office in this house, and there was a huge gravel truck in the lot right beside that he owned. And the house was up on a bit of a hill. So I walked into the office, and I was like, "Hey man, how do you want me to pay for the parking for the next couple months?" And he was just like, cash is always great. And I was like, "Okay, figured." And I was like, "Can you give me some type of receipt? Because I do plan on expensing this." And he's like, "Receipt?" He's like, "Sure, if you want." So he had, I think there was a lady that worked in there, and she just like old school manual receipt and like just wrote on it like whatever I wanted to say. And so I'm in there talking to this guy, Rob, and I kind of just glance over to my right where this gravel truck was. And so the top of it was open. So it's like a 40 foot long trailer. And there was a person inside the trailer sitting on a bed of like huge boulders. And the guy that was in there was like a human being was inside of this trailer. And the guy was just sort of slumped over, like head in his hands like this. So I look at this guy like 3 times. I'm like, what is going on here? And then the guy gets up and he starts hucking rocks out the back, like out the side of the trailer. And then as I'm looking at it more, there's like mounds of rocks on either side. And I look at Rob and I'm like, what's the deal? What's going on over there? And he was like, oh yeah. Well, he goes, I lease out some of my gravel trucks just to operators, like if they don't own their own truck. And I was like, okay. And I was like, well, what's he doing inside the truck? He goes, oh, well, he drove it really bad for like a couple of weeks and he messed up the engine. So we have to get the whole rig towed to a heavy equipment mechanic. But to do that, we needed to get the payload out of the back. So I thought it was only fair that I make him take out the rocks. I was like, could you not get a machine to do that? And he was like, well, I could, but he was like, you got to teach guys lessons, right? When they mess up. And I was just like, yeah. He's like, that's only fair, right? And I was just like, yeah, that's fair. And I just was like, gave me the receipt. And I was just like, I made sure for like the rest of the time that I dealt with him. And to me, he was always like very friendly. But that picture of this dude literally like inside of 10 feet deep in a gravel truck, like sitting on huge boulders, definitely stuck with me. So I made sure to pay him early every month that I had my vans at his lots.
That's funny.
So did he end up giving you a receipt?
Oh yeah. Yep.
Awesome.
And the same guy. So yeah, again, like same guy. We had a neighborhood. So in the same area, he ended up buying this. There's just like mansions, like humongous homes in this kind of like 30 or 40 homes in this like insane neighborhood. He ended up buying a house there. And going into Christmas light season, he was like, hey, he's always said, hey, Rich, I got to get you to bid me on my new house. So I was like, yeah, 100%, man. And
he froze.
He's either thinking really hard or he froze.
Or about to sneeze, maybe.
Yeah.
Running with the mafia. That's wild.
That's wild.
Yeah.
We'll let him come back. He comes on. We can keep it going.
I mean, I had I got a quick one while he's coming
Yeah.
back. Like I had this one house. It was kind of like a big, like 3-story Victorian style, like 100-year-old house as well. And this is a lesson in make sure you document your colors. So we get there and have like my best spray crew there. They just come and they crush it out, right? So we like prep this whole house and we prime it and then we paint it because it's a white house and we painted it white again. And it was like huge house. It's like I don't even know how many like dozens of gallons we put on. So we paint this huge thing like white eggshell. We put semi-gloss on the trim and we're like literally wrapping up the sprayer and cleaning up our brushes. And I remember the customer, Mr. Alazinski, because I painted like 5 houses for him. But he came to the house to like check on the job. It was a rental, so there's like a bunch of different tenants in this house, right? So he comes to check on the house and he like stands next to me. And he's like, "Wow, that's a lot of primer." Like, what? No, man, we're done. Like, time to go home. He's like, "No, we picked tritone brown." I'm like, "What? No, this is white. This is what we did." And then like he pulls out the color samples that he had previously given me that I lost. And he's like, "No, remember, I had a designer pick this color palette for this house." And so it ended up being like a light brown on the siding and then 2 different colors of trim. So like we had a light trim and then like the gables were a darker brown. And I was like, "All right, Al, let's make a deal. I'll give you," I was like doing the math in my head, like Rain Man style. I'm like, "I'll give you 15% off if we can just keep it white." He's like, "No." "All right, 25% off." "No." God damn it, I'm repainting this house, aren't I? He's like, "Yep."
Oh no.
So we went and got the paint and ended up getting 2 I brought like all my like 2 or 3 crews. I'm like, everyone, all hands on deck, let's get this thing done. So I had my best spray team doing the spray and my best crew cutting all the trim. And like 2 days later, we had this whole project repainted. And you know what? He was right for pushing back because it looked so good after. It was like, just like when you get a color palette that just like slaps. It was just such a nice color after. I could probably find a picture on my like iPhone 1 or whatever it was. But anyway, so that was I don't know if we made any money, probably not, but yeah, I definitely learned a lesson in like document the colors and make sure that they're on the contract and signed off on. So never made that mistake again. I'll tell you what.
I feel like that should be the theme of this. And so I never made that mistake again.
Yeah.
Actually, I made it 3 more times, and then I never made it again.
Yeah, sometimes we're slow learners.
Rich, you paused out. You got to finish.
Yeah,
finish
sorry,
the
gentlemen. Yeah. So second personal story with this gentleman. So yeah, Christmas light season, maybe 2021. He'd been saying to me for a while, hey, when I buy my new house, I want you to quote it. But this, yeah, I mean, these are just mansions in this beautiful neighborhood. He made it very clear. He was like, hey, only Italian guy in this neighborhood, Rich. What do you think? And I'm like, yeah, man, like, you're doing great, Rob. You're doing awesome. And he knew that I did a bunch of work in there. So yeah, quoted. Oh, so this was, yeah, it was 2 days before my wife and I were getting married. We, during COVID times, we did like a micro wedding. So it was just like a very small, basically we eloped. And my wife's like, hey, you make sure you block off a couple days. Like, I know you're super busy, but I was like, yeah. So who texted me? But Rob, he was like, hey, meet me at my house tomorrow morning at 7:30. I was like, no, not this guy. And
I don't want to be unloading a rock truck with my bare
Yeah,
hands.
kidding.
And I was like, I basically said to my wife, I was like, I don't know if I have a choice in this scenario. Like, I have to be there. But I was like, hey, I'll be home at like 8:30. This might have even
for the mob now.
This might have even been the day that we eloped, like when we had the little micro ceremony. And
Oh my God.
You come to me on the day I'm to be married.
Yeah.
no, so he texted me. I think it was the evening before, like, hey, I'm ready for the quote. Meet me at 7:30 in the morning. I was like, okay, go to his house, quote him on a bunch of stuff, and I mean, it was like $25,000 Christmas light installation. He's waiting there in his truck, or he's having guys come in and out, meet him, like his guys with their trucks, and I'm about ready to like write up the quote. I'm in my little sales car. It's cold. It's like end of November, and he rolls up in his huge truck, tinted windows, and he just like he drives up beside me on the street, and then he like puts down the window, and I was like, hey Rob, I'll be another 5 minutes. He goes, no. He goes, get in. In that moment, I just was like, is he gonna take me somewhere? Like, just like that's like, just all these thoughts are going through. And it's the day that I'm eloping, like getting my little wedding ceremony. So
Oh my God.
Turns
Turns out this guy is the Godfather.
yeah, I just like in that moment, I just looked at him. I was just like, okay. So I'm like getting ready to like text my wife, like, hey, if I don't get home in an hour, call the cops, right? Like, and so, yeah, I go on his truck, and I think you could tell I was nervous. And he's like, you good, man? And I was like, yeah, I'm good. And he's like, what's the price? We're just sitting in his truck, right? And I was like, I mean, just can you give me like 2 minutes? And again, trying to do like just quick mental math. And he didn't need a proposal. He didn't need nothing. He goes, dude, just what's the price? Tell him. And he was like, okay, so take off 13%, right? We don't do cash, obviously. And I was like, well, I don't work that way. And I stuck to my guns, kept the price. He was like, he didn't end up booking, and everything was fine. He did
end up booking?
He did not end up booking, and I think he might have said, this was sort of at the start of our relationship. I ended up dealing with this guy for a couple of years.
Oh my God.
And I think he respected me more for just in that scenario, just like sticking to my price. I didn't bow down to what he said he wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And I was good. I went home and put my suit on and went and got married.
Oh my God.
You didn't show up your wedding in the back of a gravel truck.
No, yeah, it was all good.
And he's like,
Yeah,
we got to teach this boy a lesson, right?
Yeah. No, I think he respected me for that. And every time I'd see him, he'd be with sort of his group of
Consigliere.
Yeah. Again, like during the week, it was jeans, construction boots, weekend, Ferraris, Lambos at the coffee shop. And every time I'd walk in there, they'd be telling stories, swearing. And then again, it's like me walking in, like comb owner, button up shirt. And Rob would always say, hey, Rich, how's it going? Good. So yeah, I think you got to establish a little bit of respect.
You got some contacts.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I got a quick story. It's not so much of it's kind of a horror story, but not really. It's kind of funny though. And
Was
that
the mob
first
involved?
season, What's that?
Was the mob involved?
We'll see. We'll see how it ties around. The story's still going. No, I'm just kidding. So that van, the one I told in the first one, the one that the head gasket blew that we got repaired. I booked this job in like April with these couple that I really liked. They made me dinner during the estimate. And I was like, yeah, when we come out here in June, we can have this beautiful bright blue van. We're going to show up. It's going to look so good. And, you know, the crew's going to be here. And we're starting that job the next day. And I look at my van and it's still this dark, ugly brown color that I bought. And instead of just forgetting about that and not worrying about it, my roommate, I was like, hey, man, back in April, I made this promise to the customer that I was going to show up in this bright blue van. And we start that job tomorrow. I was like, you got to help me paint this van right now. It's 9 p.m. at night. So we go to the driveway and it's pitch black out. And we're using this like nasty, thick industrial paint that is this absolutely god-awful bright blue color. And we are hand rolling and cutting this van.
Why did you have to do this?
Because back in April, I promised the customer when we were going to show up to paint, we are going to show up in this beautiful, bright blue van. But I was looking at my van, it's dark brown. And we're like, you know what? And we're just going to one coat it. So we're rolling it out. We can't see any of the cut lines. We can't see any of the coverage or anything, right? And now it's like 11:30, and my roommate's like, man, like I gotta go to bed. Like I got an early day, and this thing is like, I can just tell it looks horrible, and I'm like, yeah, I got to get up at 5:30 the next day to start production. So have like 5 hours of sleep, and I walk out and I look at this van, and it looks so bad. It's hardly covered. There's just the nastiest cut lines. Like this van looks like the absolute biggest piece of shit you've ever seen. And I'm like, I got to go start this job. So I literally just drive and show up. Obviously the customer did not remember that I said that we were going to show up in this bright blue van. Like they didn't care, but I was just like, no, I got to deliver on my promises. And not thinking that, hey, if we have a really terribly painted van, what kind of, how's that going to show for people showing up to their house to paint their house? Like I didn't connect those dots in my head at that time. Again, this is the first year. We're only a few months into production. And long story short, I just never went back and put another coat on the van or anything. That thing just stayed as it was for the next 2 years. And we ran that thing absolutely into the ground. But yeah, that was when we hand rolled and painted this van for 2.5 hours in the pitch black. And it turned out terrible.
Yeah, I painted one of my vans once too.
I painted
Actually,
a car
it
once,
came out pretty good though. We sprayed it.
Yeah, yours looked good. I remember yours. Yours looked actually really good.
Big yellow stripe down the side. People I actually had a guy work for me because he saw the van. He thought it was cool. He ended up being my production manager.
Well, that's what happens when you do it the right way, and you've been doing it for a few years.
So I hired a production manager, and he took over. I had a F-150 at the time, so I'm like, okay, Ryan, you get to drive my truck, and I didn't have a car, so I went on Kijiji or Craigslist or whatever, and I found this like $800 Toyota Corolla, like 1989 or 1991 or something like that, just like this little 4-door, a Toyota Corolla with a carbureted engine. And anyway, so I bought this thing for $800, and it was like shit stained brown. It was awful. So I ended up doing the exact same thing. Me and my buddy turned the lights on in the garage, and we got a can of yellow bright yellow trim clad, and little whiz rollers and brushes, and we rolled the thing bright yellow, and then we did like bright blue fenders with like a high gloss trim clad. Anyway, it looked like you rolled it. It looked like it had been rolled. But it kind of got offset because it was just so bright and loud. It kind of was like meant to be a piece of shit. So that was and then put my logo on the hood. I got like this big sticker to put my logo on the whole hood. So that looked pretty cool. But painting cars with house paint, it's great.
Yeah, man.
What else would you do? When you're just getting going.
And
no, I think a lot of people
business, I called the dump, or I called this like company, and they just like towed it straight to the dump. Gave you the $200 scrap fee. Exactly. Because what it was.
Oh, that's so funny.
I think it's so funny, and a lot of people in painter growth and whatnot, seen when I post photos of this basically brand new, no, not basically brand new Toyota Tacoma that I have, and this Mercedes van Sprinter that's all decked out and billboard and whatnot. And it's like, man, we did not start there. Started with like a van that was dark brown, that was hand painted blue, looked like an absolute piece. And there's steps to the journey, right? There's steps.
For sure. All right, I got a. Well, now it's a funny story. At the time, it was horrific. So to put this in context, this is early on in Shack Shine, my cleaning business. So no longer painting. So we do like pressure washing, window washing, house washing, like that type of thing. And I had a really great strategic partner. He owned a company called Mr. Lawn. He would regularly feed us work. So he did landscaping. And he calls me one day. He's like, hey, my mom desperately needs her house washed because we're hosting, I can't remember what type of event. Something to do with a wedding. Like there's like a wedding reception there. It was like, can you get this done by the end of the week? This guy's like a good contact of mine, good network. I'm like, sure. I got a new crew. I'm training. I'll be there. We'll get it done. It's a perfect training opportunity. It's a big job. So we get there. Get there. We just getting going, pressure washing. Got the guys pressure washing the back patio and the front driveway, and there's like concrete paths around the house. So we'll start with that. And realized we didn't have enough gas for the pressure washers. So this was like last minute kind of scrambling, putting this together. And these guys are brand new, like day one. But I was like, they're pressure washing concrete. What could possibly go wrong? I'm just going to quickly jet off for 15 minutes. There's a gas station down the road, and I'm just going to go get gas. I'm going to come back, right? Leave, come back, and the house is literally on fire. like people joke, like I got fires to put out. Like, no, like this is like literally on fire. What had happened is one of the guys, instead of adding another hose to his pressure washer, like a normal human being would, he brought the pressure washer. And now, like, keep in mind, this is like 4,000 PSI, like industrial pressure washer, monster machines. Brought it over right next to the house with the exhaust blasting against the house. So like I'm
vinyl siding was blasting.
Vinyl siding, yeah, vinyl siding. So it's oil,
moderately combustible.
Moderately combustible. So it's like fully on fire, like not like a little spark, like engulfed in flames. And I like panic, like shit, like crank the e-brake.
As one does.
As one does, yeah. And I'm like running up the path, and the guy's just oblivious. Like he's got like earmuffs on. He's just going down the path. He's like pressure washing, like this. The house and the pressure washer's on fire. Like this thing's got like four liters of fuel in it, right? I'm like, dude, like cut, like what are you doing? Like cut it out. He's like, does this look good? I'm like, dude. I like turn his body around. He's like, oh shit. So like I grabbed the pressure washing wand. Luckily the machine's still working, so I'm like putting out the on fire pressure washer with its own water and pressure. Put out the whole house. It's just like charred and blackened. And like this, they have a wedding reception here in like 2 days. So I was just like, well, there's no other way to do it. Like, gotta face the music. So I turned to the guy. I'm like, well, I guess we're going to be teaching you conflict management real early on in your career here. It was just like, it was devastating. So like knocked on the door, and I'm just like, I can't remember her name. I was like Mrs. Jones or something. I'm like, Mrs. Jones, I got some bad news for you. And so what is that? I'm like, well, there's no other way to put it, but we've lit your house on fire. It's no longer on fire, but there is some damage. Showed her. Luckily she was like such a nice customer. And this is also like, keep in mind, this is like the mom of like a strategic partner. Like he probably fed us like $30K worth of work a year. like not massive, life changing, but like significant. And then I was like, I'm going to make this right. My business partner came by, kind of like kept the guys working. And like, I got to go find some vinyl. Little did I know.
Figure out how to install vinyl siding.
Well, yeah, exactly. And then, so I'm like, I did just do some research, ripped off a bunch of the vinyl. And the manufacturer was somewhat local in Langley. It's like a city, kind of like an hour and a half away. And then, so I'm like, hop in my car. It's like a little 2-door coupe, right? Bomb down there, bring them the piece that's like charred and blackened, like, hey, can you guys match this? And they had the product, which is great. I didn't realize vinyl siding came in like 20-foot strips.
20 foot.
Right. I've never done this before. So they're like, yeah, we got it. Like, how much do you need? I did the, calculation. So I knew the square footage. So I'm like, yeah, okay, just bring it around back. We'll load it up for you. I'm like, okay, load it up. Perfect. I got tons of room in my car. In my mind, it was like coiled, like easy to move around. And I pull up to their warehouse. They're like, I don't know how this is gonna fit, man. I'm like, no, there's no other option but to make this fit. Anyways, ended up just opening the sunroof, 20-foot long sections of vinyl siding, like through the sunroof, through like the gap in the seats, into the trunk. I'm like, okay, this is fine. It's like, I've done it with a 24-foot ladder before, and when I was desperate, like, this is fine. Vinyl siding's fine. Until I got onto the highway, and I will tell you, vinyl siding is real bendy. So I'm like bombing down the highway, stressed as like a human being could ever be stressed. And like this vinyl siding is like fully bending back across my car. So I ended up just having to take little like side roads, and got there, fixed it. It's fairly easy to do. Fixing it while the guys are continuing to wash the house, and got it done the same day. But yeah, fun story. Customers still made us carrot cake.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So next time any of you complain about fires, keep that in mind. It's probably not an actual fire. That's actually the second time I've put a fire, like a flaming pressure washer, out with the pressure washer.
Oh,
my God.
John Stiegler lit a cabin on fire, right? He had that oily rag, and he left her. One of his painters left it in the bin, and that.
God.
I think it was a total write-off, the whole house.
Holy.
So,
Yeah.
So oily rags, don't mess with them.
Yep. My favorite part of that story, two favorite parts, is when you come back and the new employee is just wondering if he's doing a good job. Meanwhile, behind him, the house is on fire, and then obviously further along in your career, where you just, when something goes wrong, you just be upfront and transparent with the customer, and you're just like, hey, listen, got some bad news here. Like, we lit your house on fire.
Like, it's not like a small piece where you can temporarily cover it up with a plant or something. Like, there's no getting around that.
It's like, do you want the good news first, or we have good news and bad news? Which do you want first? Good news. Driveway looks pretty good. Half of your driveway looks good. Were you able to like retain the pressure washer, or did you like have to get a new machine?
Yeah, we kept that pressure washer. Pressure washers are pretty resilient, those ones, for being on fire. I ended up buying another business. This is one of the reasons we grew so fast. We bought out a neighboring location, and they had a pressure washer set up so you can run it in the vans, like the Sprinter vans. You can just open up the doors and the machine runs. So solo operators can just like crank it out. These things are huge, right? And then I guess one of the doors closed, and it was hammering against the wood panel door. So all the doors had wood panels on the inside, and it lit on fire.
We should do an episode sometime about that acquisition. That'd be a cool story.
Yeah, definitely can. So anyways, we bought a van that was charred and blackened, but the pressure washer still friggin' worked, man. That's pretty crazy.
Beauty.
Amazing. And I feel like we could do a lot of episodes on. We got enough stories between the four of us. I feel like we're just getting started now.
Well, I feel
And
like
the
I
more stories you
feel like I
share-
faced and like relived some of my trauma, and I'm feeling a lot better.
I know, right? And the more you tell, the more that just comes up, right? Of like, oh yeah, I remember that time I fell off a ladder and broke both my wrists. The very last painting job I've ever done. Yeah,
Yeah, and that's a real story. You did that.
I
Yeah.
did do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually,
I
you know what?
think-
It wasn't even my job. I was helping. I'd wrapped up my first painting business, and I was helping a buddy, Fife, wrap up his last job. And after 5 years of being a painter, running my own painting business, didn't get a single injury. The very last day on this very last job, in the most controlled environment ever, like inside of a warehouse, perfectly flat concrete floors, fell off a multi-way ladder, crushed both my wrists,
Oh,
destroyed my
man.
knee. 4 days before I was supposed to go to Colombia, meet like 10 of my friends in Colombia. Yeah.
Well, not quite a painting story, but like real quick. So at Jesse's like bachelor party, Jack and Jill party, Gavin slammed my wife's fingers in the back of his
I
trunk.
did. Yeah. I then somehow got a job.
Yeah.
So
That was before you started with Painter Girl. So
that was well before Painter Girls. Yeah.
that was some good bonding. Yeah.
I did feel awful about that.
That was wild. The whole day was wild. But anyway, Rich's internet looks like it dropped out. But guys, that was good. Happy Halloween, everyone. I think this is on Friday, so it'll be one day after Halloween. But good times.
Sweet. Love
Hope
it.
you all
That was
had
super
fun
fun, guys.
listening to our terrible, painful stories.
Yeah.